Okay children, so in this video I'll be teaching you how to fill this table without drawing the graphs. Okay, so without drawing the graphs, how are we going to fill this table? Okay, so what we noticed in this graph type y equal ax square plus b type, right? So in the y equal ax square plus b type graph children, so what we noticed was the main properties. I think now you saw in the previous video I was telling you to write a set of questions for each and every graph, right? So what was I telling you? So here in the ax square value, if your a value is positive, if your a is positive, then it's a minimum graph, right? You remember it's a graph like this. If your a value is negative, then it's a maximum graph, meaning your graph looks like that. Okay, so and then what we noticed is in all of those graphs, okay, so in all of those graphs I was telling you the axis of symmetry, right? So you can see in both the graphs, okay, in all these graphs the axis of symmetry was x equals 0. So in the y equal ax square plus b type graph children, so it's centered around the axis of symmetry in all these graphs. So in y equal ax square plus b, the graph, the axis of symmetry for all those graphs were what? Axis of symmetry or equation of axis of symmetry was x equals 0. So this didn't change even though the graphs were changing, whatever that the looks. Okay, so in all these graphs we can see, the axis of symmetry is the y axis, or what we call as the x equals 0 line. Okay, so that's going to be the same. Then the next thing we talked about is the maximum or minimum value of y function. So that depends on whether the maximum or minimum depends on the graph type. So if you have a minimum graph, then you have a minimum y value. If you have a maximum graph, then you have a maximum y value. And then children, let me show you a shortcut. I don't know whether you noticed this or not. You all saw in the previous graph. Now here I said, okay, so minimum y value. So you saw here, okay, minimum y value became 1. Okay, so you can see that's the place where you the most minimum, the smallest y value. But if you actually look at the equation children, so you will notice that you actually have that 1 over here. Can you see this plus 1 separately? So this guy is actually, this plus 1 over here is actually what's going to be your minimum y value, minimum or maximum depending on the graph. So if it's a minimum graph, this plus 1 is going to be your minimum. Okay children, so here also you can see in the other graph also y equal x square plus 1. So it's plus 1. So you can see your minimum value is also plus 1. Can you see children? Here your minimum y value is 1. So let me show it to you from the other graph also. So in this graph, this graph I drew is y equal minus x square plus 5. So this is a minus x square, means it's a maximum graph, right? So maximum graph, you can see here separately this plus 5. So this plus 5 in the maximum graph. So in a maximum graph you have a maximum y value. So the maximum y value is directly going to be 5. See whether it's correct or not. So look at the graph. You can see here the highest y value we have is 5. Can you see? So the maximum y value is 5. So I've written it earlier. Okay, so you must have written it neatly, right? I asked you to write it neatly on the page. So the maximum y value is 5. So if you check those graphs, you will see. So here children, the maximum or minimum y value. Okay, so the maximum or minimum y value actually, okay, maximum, so you have to choose accordingly. Or minimum y value is actually what it's actually going to be this b value. So it's actually going to be this b. Okay, so the maximum or minimum is actually going to be this b. Okay, so shall we try? Okay, so equation of axis of symmetry in all these graphs, the equation of axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 0. So there is no doubt about that. Okay, because all of them are in the ax square plus b format. We don't even have to draw. All the graphs are going to be like that. Coordinates of turning point. Okay, before I go for the turning point, we'll write these things, maximum or minimum. So what is this here? The first graph, look at this children. It's a 3x square. So it's a 3x square means it's a plus 3x square means it's a minimum. A positive value means it's a minimum. Here look at the x square value. So you need to look at the x square value. So here it's a 3x square, it's a positive value, minimum. Here with x square you have minus 4x square. So minus 4x square means it's a maximum. So here it's 3 over 2x square. So 3 over 2x square means it's a minimum, right? So it's a positive value means it's a minimum regardless of what the value here is. If it's a positive x square, it's a minimum. Here 3 over 2x square, positive x value means it's a minimum. Are you getting what I'm saying, children? A positive x square value means a minimum. Here 2x square, positive x square value, once again a positive x square value, so that's again a minimum. So from all these graphs, children, there was only one maximum because only one graph had a negative x square. So minus x square value, here x square minus 4x square is there only in this graph. So this is the only maximum graph. Then maximum or minimum y value. So in this the first graph we have a minimum y value, right? So minimum y, how much is the minimum y in the first graph? I told you, you look at the number who is separately there. So it's the minimum y value is 4. So here it's a maximum graph, so you have a maximum y. So your maximum y value, look at the part other than the x square part. So you can see it's a 3. So maximum y value is 3. Here minimum y value, can you understand? This is a minimum graph, so minimum y value separately outside there's a 4. So minimum y value is 4. Here also it's a minimum graph, so minimum y value. So minimum y value is minus 5. So here minimum y, this is the minimum graph, so minimum y value is minus 1 over 3. Okay, children, so that's how it's done. Then coordinates of turning point, so that also I think I have to show you the strategy. So you might have observed in the coordinates of the turning point in the previous graphs also, children. Okay, so if you saw the coordinates of turning point, always the turning is on the, now since your y-axis or the x equals 0 line is the axis of symmetry, always you are turning on the y-axis. Have you noticed that in all the graphs you are turning on the you are making your turn on the y-axis, right? So in all the graphs you are making your turn on the y-axis. Okay, so yeah, so that means so you can see here, in here also the x turning point is 0, 1, right? So the x coordinate, what I want you to notice is in all these graphs the turning point x coordinate is 0, right? So the shortcut that I want to show you here is turning point shortcut is, okay, so turning point I'll write over here. Turning point, children, in all these ax square plus b type graphs, the x coordinate of the turning point is always 0. It's always going to turn on the this axis. Okay, so it's always going to turn on the axis, therefore its x value is 0. The y coordinate is actually going to be, what would they, it's going to actually be this b value. So the y turning point is going to be, y coordinate of the turning point is going to be exactly the b value. Okay, so this b value is going to be, so always the x coordinate, the coordinates of turning point, all x coordinates are going to be 0 and the y value is simply the b value. Okay, so b value, you can see here, this is the b value column, right? This is the b value. Okay, so simply write the coordinate here, children. So coordinates of turning point, x coordinate is 0, y coordinate is how much here? 4. So this one, x coordinate is 0, y coordinate is 3, x coordinate is 0, y coordinate is 4. 0 minus 5, this is 0 and minus 1 over 3. That's it, children. So you combine the always turning point x coordinate is 0, y coordinate is the b value. So simply combine them together and get it. So this is actually kind of like your short note. Okay, so make sure that's also written somewhere really nicely, and then okay, so make sure this is also done nicely in your graph book. I mean, just draw in the table, and this is the note actually. So for y equal ax square plus b, this is the note, this is the identifying, this is how you identify, right? So this is kind of like a note, please write it nicely. Okay, so the children who are working, who have a little bit of who really want to do the work well, they would write this really neatly, and when I see the notes I can see that they've done a very good job of it. But there are some of you who just listen this for the sake of listening, so those children, they it's not their books will not be complete, right? So please make sure your books are complete, because when you come back to school, I want all the notes to be complete, right? So and then if you have any doubts, you can always talk to me, right? So make sure that if all the notes and all the books are complete, so that we can continue our work smoothly. Okay, so okay, so then this is done, children. I hope you understood the table. So if there are any doubts, please ask.